going in that we wanted to have a value system where we don't want to just take a guy and that's all he is. We're trying to build our numbers, and we took a lot of guys in this class, I think, that can play a number of different positions. Actually, there's about 7 quarterbacks in this class. So guys that'll play different positions and have that versatility. We didn't want to just say, hey, this guy's our right guard and that's all he can do. And I think that was our philosophy, and I think we met that goal, and I'm really excited about this first class, and the kids are excited to be here. You know, you heard their voices today when they'd call, and our coaches are fired up about it. So it's just it's a really good day for us, and it's the first one, and I've sold that since day one. The power of being first is really pretty cool, and I think the guys bought into it. Well, I think there's a couple guys that can do that. You know, the one guy I talked to David earlier about today is I'm really kind of partial. There's a guy named Brandon Banks in this class. Brandon was the first guy that I watched on video, and he's a defensive lineman that, you know, I just thought when I saw that tape back in April, I thought, you know, if we can sign this guy, we'll really be doing something. And he signed with us, and I tell you, he's a great kid. He's a really, really good football player. He plays defensive line, which is what our emphasis was. And the hardest thing is not having players. You know, you go a year, and coaching is what we do, and working with young men and influencing young men. And to finally get the first one was pretty exciting. Now, Matt wasn't very far behind him. It was the fax machine was burning up there for a little bit. We got a pretty good stretch running, but it was exciting, to say the least.
Going from the abstract, where you're talking about a concept, to something actually tangible, something there.
Yeah, no question. We've had a lot of steps along the way, a lot of firsts along the way. This facility behind us, that's pretty tangible. But the actual players, that's what we do. That's who's going to run out on the field, and so it was really cool this morning.
Selling point about this facility to these kids in this first class? I mean, it's still coming out of the ground, but
it is. But I think the biggest selling point is not just that stadium, but getting people on our campus. I think when you see these buildings around us and the growth and the newness and the excitement around this university, the key for us was getting guys on campus. And once you did, you know, we felt like we had a real shot at them. So that was really a critical point, to get them on campus and let them see the construction.
It seems like looking at that list, there's a lot of kids, almost all of them from the Carolinas. How important was that to you to kind of establish your base here?
Well, that was critical. I think 19 of these kids are North Carolina guys. We said our footprint was North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia. There's 2 kids out of South Carolina. There's 3 out of the state of Georgia. But North Carolina was a real point of emphasis for us. And, you know, being in this state for the last 11 years, football's really taken off. And so when we got into it, you know, it's a really good year in the state of North Carolina. There's a lot of good players in this state, and we're fortunate to get a good number of them. And I think they saw that value. We saw the value in, hey, you're starting. It's important to have, you know, 2 guys from Porter Ridge. That's big. A guy from Independence, you know, a guy from West Charlotte. I mean, those are important things to us. There'll be some people who want to come watch us play because they know them, and they're good players and they're great kids. And so that was a huge point of emphasis for us.
You almost think that the program now becomes almost a little bit word of mouth once the kids get on campus and they start telling their buddies?
No question. I mean, that was a hurdle we had to jump. Was, you know, one thing you don't think about, but when you bring kids on official visit, you bring them to campus, you always put a player host with them. Well, we don't have any players, so we had to rely on Coach Hibbs and our baseball guys. They did a phenomenal job hosting our guys, and now our guys will be able to spread that word next year in next year's class. So, you know, I can't say enough about Coach Hibbs and the baseball guys that came over, Ross, all those guys, man, just great ambassadors for this university, and they did a really nice job for us.
Brad, can you talk about recruiting kids who are also being pursued by schools like Appalachian and Coastal Carolina, and getting kids who actually had thought about them and maybe have changed their mind?
That was important for us. You know, we wanted to shoot high. It's kind of like, you know, we've said all along, we expect to do well in all aspects. We expect our guys to do well in the classroom. We expected to go out and recruit against other people, and in fact did that. You know, we were competing against good teams. We lost some, we won some, whether that's Appalachian State, like I said, Brandon Banks and Ball State, Furman, Coastal Carolina. Those are teams, Gardner Webb. They're all good teams in our area that we're going to play, and we need to recruit against those guys. And so that was you know, what we expected to do is go out and compete against those people.
Coach, what's this first year going to be like for these kids?
Well, I think what we're going to do is when they come in, we'll have a kind of an off-season winter conditioning period for them, because we're not going to bring them in the summer. We'll bring them in August when school starts. And then after that, we want to get them in shape. We get the opportunity to kind of teach them everything, teach them how to run on the field, run off the field. So that's a blessing for us. We don't, you know, we get to teach them everything. So we're going to do that for about 3 weeks, and then we'll start practice after that. We're trying to get, what we'd like to do is get basically 3 spring practices in before we play in 13. And in the spring is generally when a kid normally learns his offense and defense, and that's 15 practices in the spring. We're going to try to get those 30 practices in the fall, get another 15 in the spring, have a spring game out here in the spring of 13, and then be ready to go in the fall of 13.